How do you install Ecoworthy's single access tracker? Today I'm showing you how to install this tracking system. This is a step-by-step tutorial, so you'll learn from step 1 to done how to install this. If you want to learn more about Ecoworthy's dual access tracker, I'll put some videos down below so you can learn step-by-step how to install those trackers. If you're looking for a 10 panel or 20 panel ground mount, I've got a video on how to install a solar panel ground mount, and I'll put that link for that video down in the description as well. You're watching Taddy Digest. I'm Tad. Let's get started. Here's our box. You want to unbox everything. What comes in the box? So we've got this box here, which contains our hardware. Here's our expansion bolts. Then we got another box that contains some brackets. We're going to need those. Then we got another box, and this looks like our linear actuator. Another box here contains our controller, solar tracker controller. We got another box here. This contains some of our beams that are labeled D, E, and those are actually going to mount on the main pole. Then we've got our unistrut. This is what our solar panels are going to mount on. And we've got our compass and our manual. And then we've got our 4 solar panels. And this is what we're going to mount on the actual single access tracker once we get it built. Let's go to step 1. Step number 1, locate the main pole and locate the compass. This main pole is going to be mounted with expansion bolts into this concrete pad here. I've got a little concrete pad. If you've got a concrete pier or pad ready to go, that's going to be perfect for mounting your main pole. Now we're going to take our compass. We're going to set it down. We really don't need it though, because I know where south, north, east, and west is. We want to look at the labels. See, this says west, north, east, south. We're going to face this in the south direction right here in the middle of my pad. See that? Now this is facing south, this is facing east, this is facing west. Now that we know that, we're going to take our marker. I'm going to go ahead and mark each one of these holes. And we are going to drill into the concrete where these holes are marked. This is going to be where we're going to place our expansion bolts. Now that we've marked our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 holes, make sure that when you use a drill, make sure it's a corded drill. You don't need to use a battery operated drill. It's going to be tougher. Use a corded drill or a hammer drill. If you got your expansion bolts out of that box, take it, put it next to your drill bit, and then mark your drill bit. This is a masonry bit. Why do I mark it? Because I want the right depth. Also, this is a 1/2 inch drill bit, masonry drill bit. Now we should have power. I'm going to go ahead and drill all 8 of these holes, and I'm going to stop at my mark. Here we go. All right. Once you get your holes drilled, then you can take and place your expansion bolt in the hole. And if the hole's not big enough, then you may need to make the hole bigger. I like it to be tight as possible. Now that you have the expansion bolts ready to go in the hole, get a hammer. I couldn't find a hammer. I don't know why, I must have misplaced it, but hey, when you can't find a hammer, I make anything a hammer. So I'm going to use my monkey wrench. Man. It should go all the way to the concrete. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and smack the rest of them in. And then you want to take the bolt off. We got all the nuts, washers, and lock nuts off of our bolts. so we can set the main pole down and have all these bolts go through our bolt holes. I have one bolt I did not drill the right depth. I want to bring awareness to one thing. Not only do you have to have the right depth, but you need to have the right hole size. If you use the wrong size bit and the hole's too small, if you take and you swell because you're trying to beat this bolt into a hole that's too small, if you do that, you're gonna swell the end. And when you do, it's gonna be super hard to get these nuts off. So please be aware, do not make that mistake. Now, if we drilled the holes in the right spot, then when we go to set the bolt holes over the bolts, it should all line up, right? Oh, perfect. Yeah. So now we'll take washer, lock nut, bolt. And we'll put all these in place. I'm using a cordless impact wrench and a socket. It's a 17mm socket. And the brand is CC. Check it out. This thing is awesome. Take a look. Beautiful. That ain't going nowhere. So I got 6 of the 8 expansion bolts tightened. 2 of them, well, I made some mistakes. This one, I tightened it until it broke off. So don't over tighten it. This is one that I messed up because didn't drill the hole size right and I can't even get the bolt on there. So 2 mistakes I hope you avoid, because now you've seen what I did and I explained how I made those mistakes. So I did get 6 and it's not going anywhere. So I'm not worried about it. I'm gonna go ahead and finish the install. We're gonna take our beam or pole labeled B and we're gonna place it right here on our main pole labeled A. Then we're gonna use the screw that comes out of screw bag 2, and it's a large bolt and it's got a flange nut right here. So it says screw bag 2. All right, this is how you should install this. Just like this right here. And that is pole labeled B onto A. Next, we're gonna mount the pole that's labeled C onto the pole that's labeled B. And for the screws, it's gonna be screw bag 3. So I love this because, here's the bolts, this is what they look like. I love this because the manual has each bag of screw that you're gonna use for each step. It's labeled screw bag 1, screw bag 2, screw bag 3. So I love that, I love that. That's how manuals should be. There's been a lot of manuals that are not like that. So there's screw number 1 with our flange. And then here is screw number 2. Whoop. There's screw number 2. And then that's what it should look like right there. Super simple so far, I love it. Now we're gonna mount the pole labeled D onto the pole labeled B. We're using screw bag 4, and here's what the screws or the bolts look like. How are we gonna mount this? Like this right here. Bolts, 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 and bolts. And in the manual, it shows the lock nut, it shows the bolt head, and then the lock nut, and then the washer, and then on the other side, you've got your flange nuts. So I'm gonna put all 4 of these in place. We'll go to the next step. Now we're gonna mount the 2 poles labeled E, where's it at? E, onto the pole labeled C. And how are we gonna mount both of these? You see these bolt holes? These will be on bottom, and then this part will be on top. And we're gonna mount each one of them here, and then one of them here. What bag of screws are we gonna use? screw bag number 5. See that? All right, let's get them on there. Now we're going to put the unistrut together because this is what holds our panels to the actual tracker. We're going to use screw bag number 6, and we're going to use these splices here. So you're going to take a splice, you're going to line it up with the 2 holes on one side of the unistrut, and then the 2 holes on the other side of the unistrut, and then we're going to bolt it together. So I'm going to check out what screws we're using here. In the bag, it looks like we need 8 bolts, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, looks like 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So these are our bolts. Make sure when you're putting the rails together, the unistrut pieces, and you're using the splices, that you use these steel connectors. When you get the 2 pieces butted up together and inside the splice, you're going to put this steel connector down inside the unistrut like this. This is on page 6. I wanted to show you because I made the mistake of not putting these in. Now that we've got these 2 pieces of unistrut, we've got those unistrut pieces put together. Now we're going to attach those unistrut pieces to the bars or the poles labeled E. How are we going to do that? Take a look. We got a U-bolt. We got a washer. So what we do is we take this piece of unistrut here, we center it, and then we put this piece through it like this. All right, see that? Then on the other side, we get our washer, and we get, this is like a double washer. And then we get our 2 bolts. And then we do the same thing on the bottom. And then we put our other pole up here. And I'll show you that all put together. Now we get bag number 7, which contains some bolts and the linear actuator stand. And this is the white one. I'm going to show you how to install this now. On the bar or pole labeled D, we're going to install this stand. It is white, and we're going to use 2 bolts, one there and one here. And then I'll tighten those up and show you the next step. Now you're going to look in the box that contains the actuator, and you're going to see there are 2 more stands, and they're silver. And one step in the process that you need to make sure that you get right is when you attach the poles that are labeled E to the pole that's labeled C, you got to make sure that these bolt holes are facing the direction that is west, right? Or they're on the side that's west. Why? Because whenever you install this, now grab your actuator and grab these pieces here. And we're going to put the top part in first, like that. And then once you get the top piece connected, we're going to bring this down, and we're going to connect a bottom piece. And then you want to use these pins here, and I'll show you what they're used for right here. It's hard to see. You put the pin in the other side, like this, well, like that, and then you separate it. That way it won't come out. Now, I'll get the other one in. On the other side, you're gonna see 2 holes right here, and we're gonna put this silver stand on the other side, and this is pole B. I'll get that tightened up and show you the next step. Now you want to find the piece that looks like this, which is called the rod rack or rack, and then this is the rod. And what you're going to do, or what I'm going to do first, is I'm going to take the rod, I'm going to put it up here, and I'm going to put this piece through it, and then I'm going to put that little pin in place. Then I'm gonna take the rod rack. See these bolts right here on the south side? We're gonna take and screw this rod rack in. I'll get it screwed in, show you the next step. Next step, we're gonna take and bring the rod down, and we're gonna use a bolt to tie it into the rack rod, or the rack. And you can also see there is an arrow here. And I'm seeing what this is for now. Look, you can change the angle from 15 to 30 to 45. That is really cool. So we'll bring it down, and I'll probably just choose the first hole here. But that is so cool. I like this. This is nice. All right, now that's in place. Looks pretty sturdy. That's great. Now, let's go to the next step. Now, for this next step, we're gonna install the sunlight sensor, or sunshine sensor. It looks like this. It's in the box with the controller. How do we mount it? We have to have a rack. This is our sunlight sensor rack, and then we're gonna use screw bag 10. Now, as far as placement, you wanna look at the manual. It says it needs to be on the northern side, and it's gonna have south this way, north this way. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna take this piece here. I'm gonna mount my sensor right here, like this, and I'm gonna use these two screws. Let me go ahead and get it in place. These two screws are gonna hold the rack. There's another two screws for the sensor. Let me show you. All right, so I found two Phillips screws that fit these holes here. I was unsure on what screws to use, but they were in this package here, this very small package. And when you look on top of the sensor, it has north on there. You may not be able to see it, but it's on there, and that is a good indication of which way you should actually mount this sensor. Now let's move to the next step. Now we're going to install our clamps so we can install our panels. And I want to measure this. It says 90.5 inches. So our rail length is 90.5. Now I'm going to measure my panel length, 23 inches. So these are eco-worthy solar panels. They're 18 volt, 100 watt monocrystalline panels. And if we take 23 times 4, that's 92 inches. So it looks like we're going to have enough room to install these. Now I'm going to show you the clamps we're going to install. We're going to use these. These are our middle clamps. And then we're going to use the screw bag that is number 11. I'm going to open the screw bag up. Now I'm going to show you how to install this. So you're basically going to take and slip this piece over these, right? Like this. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take and place this where you're going to put your first panel. And then as you tighten the screw, it's going to pull the panel down against the rail, and this clamp is going to be tight. Let me show you. So I'm going to start by taking all of these clamps, and I'm going to start by putting them all together. So I'm basically sliding them in, and then I'm putting my bolt on here. We're going to do all those, put them together, and then I'll show you how to install them. Get your panel where you want it. Slide your clamp into place. There's teeth, and once you tighten it up, it is going to stay there. And then put your bottom clamp in place. Line up your panel. I want mine lined up about right there. And I'm going to tighten this clamp up right, I'm thinking right there. All right, look at that. Now, put my other two clamps in place. One here, and then I can start putting my other panel on. You should be able to install 4 solar panels across these rails here on this single access tracker if those panels' width is less than 22 inches. Since these 100 watt panels are 23 inches and they're more than 22, I was not able to successfully get each panel on here. You can see I don't have the clamps on this side. So I am going to figure something out to where I can actually hold that last panel securely. Now, a couple things I learned during the install. One is that I made that mistake and didn't install the steel connectors. 2 is to make all the panels fit on here and at least get as many panels on the rack as possible. I had to take and go in between these two bolts where my sunshine sensor is installed, so just to give me more room. Number two is when I'm putting panels on here, the panels that line up with the splice, I had to loosen up the nut and move the bolt over to the right or left to be able to actually get this side clamp or this middle clamp on. That's a couple things I learned. Now we're going to move on to the next step, and I'm going to have to figure something out here to make this panel secure. Maybe I can use this steel connector and you know, screw it in. Maybe I can slide it in and bolt it. Either one of those will work. I'm not going to go back and put these steel connectors in, but please make sure you do the install properly and install these steel connectors, because this is going to give you more strength, and you know, that's needed. So let's move forward. Now we're going to install the controller. So how do we install the controller? Well, we've got these two brackets here, and we are going to install those brackets just like this. And we've got this little package here with our screws, and it looks like we've got 4 very small Phillips screws. We're going to install those here, and then we've got 2 screws, and we're going to install those brackets right here. I'll put it together and show you. On page 12, it says that you need 2 of the M6 x 10 millimeter hex socket cap bolts. Well, I think I lost those 2 screws because I cannot find them. So, using my old 5/16 self tap, and I'm just gonna, there we go. Now it's attached. You may have those bolts. I did not, or I lost them. I think I lost them or misplaced them. Now that we've got our controller onto our main pole, now we can connect our linear actuator and our sunshine sensor. One hole here. So this is the one we're going to use all the way to the left. And then we've got sunshine sensor. You can tell which one that goes to. Like this. And then we've got our power for our controller right here. Red's positive, black is negative. This goes to a battery. You can tell there's only 2 holes on that one. All right. Now let's go ahead and wire up our solar panels. Show you how to wire up these solar panels. So we're going to leave our positive right here to go to our disconnect. We're going to take our negative and go into the next panel's positive. Boop. Then we're going to go from our negative of this panel to our next panel's positive. Boop. Then we're going to go from our negative of this panel to our next panel's positive. So we'll have our black PV wire going to our inverter or charge controller, and then we'll have our other PV wire. This will be our positive. This will be a red PV wire. This will be our negative. This will be a black PV wire, and this will be our string. So we have our panels tied in series. That way we have increase in voltage. Got a 12-volt battery, and I have connected with some connectors to the power cable that powers the actual controller. Once you power it up, it says press the set button to start auto tracking. Interesting. Oh, wow. Wow. That is cool. And what's it say? System in locking, low sunlight. Yeah, it is low sunlight right now. And it knows because it's using that sunshine sensor. That is so cool. So there's an auto tracking feature. And I chose to change the angle. I think it's at 45 degree. This will work best for me because I'm gonna be able to get east. Of course, I got all these trees, so I'm really not gonna get a lot in the eastern position, but in the southern position, which will be like this, and then western position, I'm gonna get a lot of sun. So, looks like it's going back now. Interesting. What's it say now? Same thing, system in locking, low sunlight. Very cool. Now this is just a temporary battery just to get the controller working, but I love it. Hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you learned something. If you did learn something, let me know what it was down in the comments. If you got a question, remember, questions can lead to new content. So put your questions down in the comment section. But if you don't have a question, that's okay. Let me know who you are and let me know where you're from. If you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe, smash that bell, ding, so you know what I'm doing. If you want more videos like this, go check out my playlist titled Taddy Solar, Garden, and Homestead. I've got that playlist there, and I've got a bunch of solar products that I have installed. You've been watching Taddy Digest. I'm Tad, and I'll keep you cool if you let me.